There is no better way to catch my wife's gaming attention than to dangle a cute, customizable, playable character in front of her and tell her she needs to save the world. Slime Heroes caught our attention from the very first time we laid eyes on it, which for me was at PAX West 2024. Thank you to the publishers for providing a game key for this review. I played a demo of the game at PAX and couldn't wait to get my hands on the full game. This is a hack and slash action adventure with a mix of platforming and Souls-light elements. It has a very colorful art style and a magical world to explore, with multiple different biomes and bosses scattered throughout it. You play as the last living slime, which you can design yourself. Equipped with a weapon, you can hit with both light and heavy attacks, cast magic spells, jump, dash, and stomp. A dark corruption has spread through the land, affecting the 6 guardians left to protect it, and turning poor villagers into glowing purple monsters, leaving you alone to journey out and save the world. The story is alright. It's not overwhelmingly in your face, which is a good thing. There are statues scattered throughout the world that you can optionally interact with to learn more about the lore, and each of the bosses will share their own spiel with you. Otherwise, there are some villagers around who will ask you to save their friends by fighting monsters and freeing them from the corruption. Upon doing that, you actually will get a cool little hat as a gift. There are a bunch of dungeons scattered throughout the map, some filled with battles and some with puzzles. Completing these will grant you extra hearts, while defeating enemies will drop crystals that you can use to level up specific character stats. But beware, because these crystals are affected by the Souls-light element of this game, where if you die, you will lose them and have to go get them back, and if you die again before getting them back, then they're gone forever. You'll need to strengthen up your character in preparation to meet, defeat, and rescue the 6 corrupted guardians. The game has a wonderful amount of spells that can all be mixed and matched with one another to create entirely new skills. Even swapping around which one is in the main slot will change how the skill acts. You can even combine a skill with itself to get a more powerful version of that spell. But on top of that, each of your 3 spells also has a modifier slot. You have your basic things like fire and ice, but then you have more interesting things like lifesteal, which lets you take some of the damage dealt as health for yourself, or oil, which makes enemies slippery and easy to push. The skills are fantastic for combat, but are also often used in the puzzle dungeons. It's fun to see how the dungeons are built around a skill and what other uses it might have outside of combat that you haven't thought of. The majority of these dungeons were fun, but some were frustrating. Maybe we struggled to figure out what to do, or the mechanics were slightly buggy. In this dungeon, for example, we could not stop just throwing the boulders off the edge when we were supposed to be using them to weigh down the scale. Eventually, an important block disappeared completely, and we had to start the dungeon over again. There were a couple like this, and I'm pretty sure this was the specific dungeon that broke my wife's will to keep playing the game. More on that later. The game starts off with pretty simple enemies to defeat, but as you play through, you'll encounter a variety of interesting enemies to deal with. Visually, they are all dull pink due to the corruption that has spread through the land, but their bodies and attacks are very different. From monsters that will grab you with their tongues and pull you towards them, to gas-glowing bugs, and slug-like enemies with shells you can knock off using that tongue ability. In fact, this is where the abilities you gain will come from. Upon defeating a new enemy, they might drop a new skill for you to equip and play around with. To add to the custom ability, as you defeat bosses, you will also get additional weapons to swap between. We both preferred the Agile Spear with its fast successive hits, but you can also play around with a hammer, an axe, a sword, a shield, or other weapons. The bosses were pretty interesting to fight. They each had their own attacks and ultimate abilities, though after a few they started to feel a little like a spam fest. Maybe it was the lifesteal abilities I was using, I'm not really sure, but it did feel like I kind of just whammed on them until they died. In addition to the weapon you get after defeating a boss, you can also challenge them in a dungeon to get a powerful ultimate ability. These cannot be combined with any of your other skills or elements, but they were still pretty cool. However, they took a pretty long time to actually build up a charge, so we often did not actually have them when we wanted to use them. There are plenty of hidden secrets to find around the map. These are often additional skills, so you can get combining, but you can also find elements and cool hats to wear. The hats grant you increased buffs, like increased speed or increased magical damage. One of the first ones we found was a lifesteal one that allowed you to heal simply by doing damage with your main weapon. It felt a little overpowered to me, so I stopped using it, but my wife enjoyed it because it allowed us to play on a higher difficulty for me, while she felt pretty much invincible. The entire game is playable in 2-player co-op, either locally or online. This actually works really well for the most part. It keeps both players on screen while giving you enough room to slightly explore on your own, and you can each design your own slime, equip and combine your own skills, and level up individually. Aside from the fact that almost any game is better with another player, this one has a specific feature that made it so much better to play 2 players than 1 player. Slime Heroes features light platforming, but it's not always clear what you can jump on. We often thought we could jump onto something, only to find out it actually killed us, which would send us back to our last save spot, wherever that was. Because of this, we would often test it with only one of us jumping, and if you did die, the second player was able to revive you by popping a ghost and bringing you back with a quarter of your life or so. There are not many other specific interactions between players other than reviving, but there are a couple of spells that offer area of effect buffs, so you get the benefit of those too. The difficulty settings can be toggled in a variety of ways so that you can make it work perfectly for you and whoever you're playing with. In fact, the settings can actually be changed per player. I'm not exactly sure how that works with some of these things like the enemy attack speed, but I can see how it would work for player and enemy damage. We really enjoyed the first few hours of the game, but then the bugginess happened. We beat one of the dungeons twice, only for the door to not open and let us out. We got stuck in various places by glitching into the floor, and the unstuck button wouldn't actually work for whatever reason at that moment. Sometimes after dying, our crystals would appear in areas we couldn't get to yet. We couldn't open some doors that should have easily opened as a shortcut into a previous area. I still enjoyed the game, but for my wife, it was enough to turn her off of the game completely, despite the fact that after only a couple of hours, she was saying she thought she liked this game more than Cat Quest III, which was our co-op game of the year for 2024. I've shared the bugs that we ran into with the devs, and we did play the game a month before the official release, so hopefully they will get fixed. According to Steam, we have 18.3 hours in the game, though several of those hours are an example of some of the bugs and glitches we ran into, having to replay certain sections or deal with frustrating puzzle mechanics that we could not get to work. I'd say a more realistic expectation would be around 14 hours to beat the game and the majority of the dungeons. The customability in this game is by far one of its greatest features. It comes near that of games like Cat Quest III and Nobody Saves the World. The game is fun and has a fantastic base. If you're willing to put up with some bugginess, then give it a try. With a little more polish, this would be a fantastic action-adventure co-op game that is great for casual gamers and more experienced gamers alike. In the meantime, check out this video for our review of Cat Quest III. It is absolutely an adventure worth taking. I cannot wait to see you over there. I love you guys. Y'all are awesome.